away. And I was so sad to hear that. But what I found out today is that she's buying prepackaged salads. So salads are still available, and veggies and ranch are still available too. So it's not completely going away as I thought.
What do you mean? It's not the big salad bar anymore. It's individual salads?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
That's
because of
more
the price of
sanitary
lettuce right now, but
Yeah.
hopefully that it's
They'll
going to
have
go
more
down.
control over portions too
Yeah.
that way.
There was also a lot of waste because
Yeah.
once it's out on the salad bar, they have to pitch it at the end
Mhm.
versus if it's prepackaged,
So,
interesting.
control it better.
and one of the biggest things I saw, and Mike's going to take it. Now we have this big recycling program, right?
Mhm.
Everyone loves the recycling program. CHS. Got to recycle in the calf.
They used to have someone take stuff to the pig farm.
No. I'm talking plastic bottles. They're all just going in the trash.
Jetty mentioned that too
What?
today.
Yeah,
They have the little
Nope.
round. Oh, they just
We-
need to
we-
get more containers.
we watched kids with, bottle after bottle just go in the trash. It was weird. I don't know why that happened, but we're going to follow up on that one.
They just need containers. Our kids were all trained to recycle.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's just not convenient for them to walk out in the hallway. That's
Right.
asking too much.
Plant in the calf.
Right.
We'll fix it.
So we will, I'm thinking of Friday might coordinate for the other 3 board members.
Mhm.
And so we'll get a date in January because you have to have a conversation with Lauren. You will appreciate the passion and the knowledge. I mean,
Yeah.
she gets into whole grain ratios. And I'm just sitting there.
She's sitting there as the kids are like leaving like the register, and she's saying, "Yep, he's got the full meal, got the grain, got this, got that, got this."
She was like counting the meal
Yeah.
components.
So if
People
they don't
rocking
buy the
by.
full meal, let's say a child only buys like the main meal and doesn't buy a milk or a fruit, then they get charged a la carte still? Okay, I'll ask that.
And we didn't ask about the pricing of that.
That's
They
it when you
still
come.
get
Charged, I think it's
Still a
charged
meal.
as a meal, but you don't get the reimbursement for it. You have to have all the components.
Because at one point I was told that if they don't, it's cheaper to buy the whole thing than to have it all broken down. There was,
Sense.
So
it's-
maybe she's changed that.
I don't know, it was cheaper for them to buy the whole meal than to take
heard
the
that
fruit
too.
out or take the milk out.
Yeah, I've heard
Right.
that too. And then just throw out the fruit and the milk if you're not going to have it.
Add that to our list.
All right.
So it was a good experience.
Yeah.
So next up, I'm going to actually invite Mary up to join us because this is the high school proposed courses, and there are 4 of them that have gone through PERC and that are here for the board's approval to then put into the program of studies. It'll come back to you. You'll get the whole
Correct.
caboodle later.
Correct. So we have 4 courses that went through PERC and were approved by that committee to go into the high school program of studies. It's what you have in front of you is not only the description of the course, but also the UBD, the framework for that particular course. I wanted to bring that forward with the descriptions mainly because it's a new format that we are going to be, as we move forward presenting curriculum, you will see more and more of that. So I figured this was a good opportunity for me to bring it to the board and so you can start to familiarize yourself with the format itself. So we have 4 courses. They are all in different departments and they are all elective opportunities for our students. So we have Advanced Self-Defense, which is a continuation of the current self-defense course that we offer. It's using the RAD curriculum. It is a female course, but in talking to Shannon, we are also in talks of developing a version for the boys. So I don't know how you guys want to do that. Do you approve them all at once or?
We can, if you want to just go through each one of
Okay.
them. Just
All right.
What does RAD stand for? Or maybe it doesn't matter. Is the D
Do you know,
defense?
Chloe?
It is
Advanced defense,
It's-
something.
It's,
A def-
it's actually,
advanced.
I believe, rape advanced defense. Rape
Yes.
is, it's,
Oh,
I
Yes,
looked
it
it up
is.
at one point and I didn't write it on my notes.
that's all right.
It's okay.
Thank you. The second one that is before you is computer animation. And this will fall under the computer science category. It focuses on both the computer science side as well as the artistic and creative side. You can see that in the 2 units, the programming and then the application. So I worked very closely with Sean to also include some art standards. It's not reflected in the competencies because the competencies are computer science, but you can see some integration of the art skills in those documents as well.
Mary, can I just, these are new courses, but as we look at the unit and the way it's sort of spelled out, can
Sure.
you just talk to, is that different from what we've done in the past with unit planning? I think
So what we have, they're broken down in units, but it's actually the framework. So you'll see some content in it, but it's more broad picture, skill-based information. It's really focused on the transfer of application of the skills into new and real world ideas is the whole process behind it. What I would relate it to and what we use to sort of get some of these started were the frameworks that were approved back in 2016. The difference being that the frameworks are very heavy and don't really show the progression across grade levels. These are being individual courses. You won't see it, but when the math and the ICT K-12 come through, you actually could line these up side by side and you should be able to see the progression of skills at each grade level. So that's really, I know this was a format that was being used for instructional lessons in the past, an older version. So it is something that the teachers are somewhat familiar with, but it's taking what they are familiar with and almost taking a step back. It's really looking at the end. What is the end goal, and we'll design backwards from there.
So I have a question, just
Sure.
kind of a higher level question.
Sure.
What is the PERC process for bringing new classes to the board? Is there a needs assessment that is done? By what criteria are new classes proposed? And also, what are the implications to teachers? I saw on one of these that, other teachers feel very comfortable teaching this, but I didn't see it on a couple others. So I'm just.
So what the process currently is there is a deadline set by the high school. Teachers are to, if they would like to propose a new course, they do the narrative as well as, for this year we added the unit design as well. That gets turned into the high school. We then had a meeting, they included me in it this year, where the principal, assistant principal, director of guidance, and myself sat down, looked at the courses, looked at what we had that was already, in that area, whether or not it was redundant or necessary or whatnot. And then if we felt it met the criteria, it wasn't going to push something else out in terms of the topics or the skills, then we've moved it forward to PERC. And then we take it to PERC. PERC reviews the documents as they were presented to the school. And
PERC, who's on PERC? I know it's
PERC
some
is
teachers
it's
and-
representation from all 3 buildings,
Admin.
teachers and admin from all 3 buildings, and Tina's on it. Okay. And then just because one of the concerns that came up in our discussion was, when we add electives in, what happens? One of the things that we did this year, we sort of went back to is in looking at the program of studies. I sat down, I was part of those discussions. We sat with each department or CF to talk about, were there things that we wanted to stagger and run, maybe not next year and run the year after, so that we weren't running everything and really watering down the numbers. So
And were there any courses designated to be eliminated?
at this point, there were not, and that was my doing. Being so new, I wanted to be able to watch it a little bit.
I just didn't know in the conversation.
Yeah. There were some that we did talk about. I tend to lean on the side of, if it's a valuable course, let's keep it in the program of studies, even if we don't run it,
Yep.
because it gives us the flexibility to be able to do that down the road.
We've also talked about some strategic kind of planning, right? So that we would say, okay, this course will not run this year, but
Right.
it will run the next year. So
Right.
that students, because what ends up happening is you'll have 5 that select and 5 select, and then you run neither, right?
Right.
Whereas if you say, we're not going to run this one, those 5 might be here, and now you can run, I don't know if we'll run it with 10, but you know what I'm saying? You at least can bunch people together with.
And that was the conversation that we had with each department as we went through, and we were able to narrow down. And it was actually a fantastic process. The teachers came in and especially in our elective-based courses, our unified arts courses, saying, okay, we know these 2 have to run simultaneously, so we'll run one this year. Then, I think it was a good process for everybody to go through. So, the third course in front of you is the Vietnam War era. And this is actually proposed by Mr. Gingras. And just looking at, basically, as we go through social studies, this tends to be a period that we run out of time. So, and it really goes in depth into the basically post World War II era, and then in post the American involvement in Vietnam. So, actually, a very interesting course. I'd like to take it. And the third one is the Science of Natural Disasters 2. It is a continuation of a course that we already have on the book, Science of Natural Disasters. This was put forth by Mr. Pothier. I believe it's been running for like 2 or 3 years.
I think it's pretty
Um,
new.
Yeah, it's very.
Yeah, but it has been an extremely popular course, and it is really, they wanted to do a continuation of it to really focus in on the connection to the current events and things that are, and really delve more in depth. And it gives the kids that aren't your typical
Science
physics kids, that like the science kid, it gives them an opportunity to continue with science.
Is natural disasters 1 a prerequisite, or is this something that kids who didn't take that class can take?
Good question.
That was, we had some discussion about that. Currently, as it's written, it is, it's the suggestion that they take 1 before 2,
Okay.
but he did not want to make that a requirement at this point.
And it states on it that the key exception is a senior if they need the elective and they can just get into 2.
That makes sense.
He really wants
Yeah,
it to
he
do.
wants the progression, but if there were,
Background knowledge, sure.
Will he teach 1 first semester, 2 second semester,
that's what we had talked about. I mean, that clearly would be,
instead of
Ideal.
1 and 2? Okay.
yeah. They were going to look at the numbers that he has in it this year to see. It's possible with. I think the numbers were lower this year. Last year they were extremely high. He had 2 or 3 sections of it, so that would make sense to maybe run it both semesters if that's the case. But this year, I believe it's 1. It might be 2 sections.
So if these get approved, would they start next fall? Is that?
Yes. So the approval for tonight is so that we can include them in the program of studies for next fall.
And they register in February?
Let's see. All right, so I had a couple other Science of Natural Disasters. The description states something like no hyperbole, just the facts as we know them. However, there are others that believe alternative facts in today's climate, political climate. Will the politics of believe facts stay out of the course or be a forum for discussion?
It would be. We talked about that as well. It would be a forum for discussion. So they're looking at one of the things that we are doing. It's really through English and social studies, but science does take this into consideration. Is looking at the validity of sources. So that is actually a big focus that he
thinking.
wants to look into.
So they'll take 1 week and talk about Al Gore. You're asking.
Well, there's extremes on both ends, right?
Yep.
All right, and then self-defense, can it be seen as discrimination that boys don't have the option to take the self-defense course, or have other courses opened up to one gender or another for some reason?
Well, that's again another point of discussion. the thing is, it's a RAD certified course, so it can
Now that I
only be
understand what
open
RAD
for
is, right.
women, which is why Shannon and
Started
I
off that
are
way.
looking to come up with an alternative.
Does it
for-
fall into sports?
What do you mean?
Like Title IX
Just-
doesn't impact it at all, does it?
No, but it's right on the
Yeah.
fringe, which is why we are looking to. But the other thing that we looked at was
No, the reason I asked that, we're probably like under as far as female sports anyway. So if anything, it's
Oh, I
as
see.
far
well,
as
that was
summer.
what we looked
Huh.
at as well. Was the numbers in some of the advanced weightlifting classes
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that are shifted in the other direction. So, but again, we are looking to.
It's
She
like
feels
self defense. I would think it would like fall in athletics somewhere.
It's they block, you can't even see in the gym when
Yeah.
they're teaching the class. It's very, it's intense.
it's very programmatical. in
Yeah, they
terms
block
of,
the windows in the
there's
gymnasium.
Very specific. criteria around it.
More geared toward boys.
Yes. And her goal, she's very passionate about this. Her goal is to look really at the like conflict resolution part of it with the boys as well, the de-escalation.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we're looking for a motion.
Oh, I'll make a motion to approve the proposed courses to be
Second.
included in the program of studies. Sorry. Go ahead.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain. There you go.
I have one other topic connected to it that I wanted to just bring up to the board before the program of studies comes through next. I believe it's come through on the 9th. In our discussion, one of the things that has come up is the requirement of that senior English course for graduation. And what the CHS would like to do is to make that an honors senior English course, offer it as it is, but drop the requirement of that specific course for the 4th year of English and open it up so that students can take the English electives, a year's worth of English electives in lieu of that particular course. And what they're finding is that there's a population of students that really struggle with that course because it's so language intensive and it's not of the same interest level, and that they would benefit more from having some choice in what they are going to do with that. So
Do we have anything like technical writing or anything like that for kids that are taking that pathway?
there are, and I should have looked at the entire list. There's a
Oh, that's
lot
okay.
of different electives.
Okay.
But they, I think about one of the things that kind of caught me off guard was the numbers so low in journalism.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of really career specific electives that are out there that either aren't running or have very low enrollment because of the fact that
They have to.
they have to take that year-long senior English course. So, that came up in our conversation. I said that I would bring it forward to the board just as a point of conversation. If, the feedback was no, absolutely not, then they won't make that change in the program of studies. But if you guys are open to it, then I believe that will come through as a proposal in the program of studies.
Do you know, Brian, what the history of that is, or the?
Why they have to
Why
take
that's a
senior
requirement?
English?
I just know it's a requirement. I don't know the history of it, to be honest with you.
I asked Bill the history, and he said it really, the language got added. He understands it to be not what they were trying to accomplish, and so it got interpreted as too strict. And he's really looking to make it so that students can personalize that experience more.
I mean, they
It was-
have to take the 4th year of English. That's a non-negotiable for them.
Right. By state rule. That's
Right.
a given. Let them personalize which one they do. Or if a student says, I want to go to one of the local community colleges and take my freshman English course, let them do that.
Yeah.
That would be an okay. Sorry?
Yeah.
You're good with it?
No, we went round and around. We might have to look at a policy because I went around and around it like my first month. Remember, the policy says they have to take that at school, I believe.
Right, but I remember the conversation too at that
That's a
time.
different
language, right?
The handbook says that.
Handbook says
The
that.
handbook,
Policy
okay, the
says
handbook
that.
says that.
So this actually gets the
And that's the
handbook
conversation we
aligned
had.
with the policy.
Right.
Okay.
They need a
Does this need a motion or no?
Junior year to get ready for
Need a
their
motion or no?
SATs.
Uh,
Personally,
Or is
I'm
it-
sorry.
Does this need a motion or is this just a, or not?
It really, I wanted to, I mentioned to Mike today, I wanted to
We're in
just
no
bring it up
position right now to
for.
make a motion on that anyway.
No.
And that's going to be, we're going to need Bill here and Jody and.
Yeah, and
conversation.
they're
We've
all
had the
coming
conversation
on.
about
I just wanted to sort of front load it and
So
not
in
have.
lieu of everyone taking senior English, that's gonna be another class, which will be an honors option, and someone could take journalism instead, but it'll still count that as fourth year, kind of like math.
And I have a feeling that if you look at the background of it is no different than math, that we wanted to be stronger in English. And that's why we proposed that they take that particular course, not something like a journalism course.
But at the same time, the standards are the same. So the standards and the competencies that they are hitting in that senior English course are the same as what they are hitting in the elective courses as well. It's just the sort of the topic and the content that is different.
That'll be a fun night.
Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, that'll bring us to community forum. We want for community forum?
I have a question. Do I have to sit there? Are you here from the student council, student government?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. Didn't know if you had anything to say.
I asked.
Anything?
You look nice today.
What? That's nice.
Oh.
Public input.
Yeah, you have an opportunity to speak if you want.
That's what we're
Right
on.
now. Bill.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to stop this.
We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
I'm Billy Randolph, 9 Perry Court. So I don't want to restate myself too much. I talked last week too. I just wanted to talk about, again, the minimum of 3 years that have elapsed. I just want to talk again about why I think it's a little bit too much. So the students, in the case of Mr. Martin, I'm going to talk about that. The students that had an impact from him and his teaching is that are the students that are going to be gone after those 3 years. So only 1 year of students will actually be present in the school after that 3 years has elapsed. So that's kind of why I see that as a problem because, you know, obviously the 3 years of students will already be gone, may not be able to come back to provide their input or may not be affected by this decision. So I would prefer it to be 2 years because that way 2 years of students will still be in the school at the time. Currently, 2 years I would still be in the school and so would the juniors at this time. So only 1 year it would only be the freshmen that would be affected by the decision. I believe that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
No, it would be 3 years. The new policies. It's right here.
Good evening. My name is Travis Tucker. I'm the Campbell High School Student Council Secretary, and I'm the student body representative to the community. I was also here last week. I think me and Billy touched on a lot of the same points. We all feel that the 3-year waiting period is excessive, and I would just like to ask why you guys feel that 3 years is a good amount of time.
To be honest with you, I think the main reason is it's a decision we're going to make that's going to be for a lifetime.
Okay.
So it's just one that we think time should go by. Totally unemotional as far as decision making and making sure that we're making the right decision.
I think, yeah, I agree with all those points because I know sometimes rational decisions can be made in longer periods of time. However, I think a shorter period of time for the date of their leaving the high school or death should be included, and perhaps more time in the actual process of, you know, reviewing this person, like at the building level and at the school board level. Because I think, you know, it's important that someone is able to be brought forward in a reasonable amount of time, because in 3 years from Mr. Martin's leaving, there will be almost no students that have known his impact. I never got to work under Mr. Martin at the high school level. I got to work with him at band camp and in other ways. But even by the time in 3 years, no one at the high school will really know his impact other than very few people. And I think it's important that the seniors this year and the juniors that only got to know him for an even shorter period of time are allowed to have their opinions heard.
So can I just ask a question for clarification? So do you think it's not important then after 3 years from now that it be named after him?
No, I think it is important that 3 years from now, but however, I think what we're trying to say is that it's important that it happens in a little less than 3 years so that his legacy and other people's legacy in other like athletic fields or gyms or rooms, hallways can be carried on. And so people can learn about them so that perhaps by the time I'm a senior, the students will know who Mr. Martin is or other teachers rather than it getting brought forward and no one does know him. And I think we have a lot of people that are great. I would like to thank you for all your input on all of our ideas and everything with the policy. Thank you.
Again, we'll be discussing the policy a little later on because the policy is not in place as of yet and hasn't been voted on. One thing I was thinking of, and I mentioned to Dr. Jetty today as we were walking through the halls and we saw a few different plaques, that I'll suggest to you to maybe like reach out to the Friends of Music to see if maybe they'll do a scholarship in his name to memorialize him. And so for the next few years, I mean,
Yeah.
you are.
This one.
And fantastic. I mean, so his name is still going to be out there and still recognized. And that's great if that's what you're going to be doing in honor of his name.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I just deleted 2 things accidentally. I'm like,
Is there anyone else with community forum?
I am Sonia Costinos, 7 April Drive. In regards to the same topic that the students just brought up, I think that it's been a pretty good exercise for the school board to go through in this situation to establish a policy that didn't exist. And I recognize the importance of it, especially as, you know, I've heard you guys talk about having something to refer to when a situation like this comes up. I think that what the students feel and what I think where we're coming from is that we really feel like this is a unique situation with Mr. Martin. I recognize the importance of having a policy in place going forward and not to minimize the importance of anybody else that, you know, may be requested to have something named after them. But the situation with Mr. Martin is happening now. It's fresh. And since we have heard the school board mention that policies, as we know, they're not laws and they can be overridden. And since there is no current policy officially in place, I'd like to ask the board members to consider making a motion to conduct a vote tonight to consider what we're asking the board to do and name the CHS auditorium after Mr. Martin. Would the board consider making a motion to vote tonight?
I think the only thing I'd say as a new member is this is the 3rd time it's happened. We don't have a policy. The policy's been, we don't name. So that's my concern.
But there is not a policy.
Well, we've stated
Not,
that.
but
We've
it has
stated
been,
that 3
there has
different
been an
times.
understanding with some boards, not all the boards, because I've reached out to some individuals that they would not name anything after anyone. So we're doing is we're going a little bit further to establish a policy, and not only just for this board, but for future boards, so that when this does come up again, they'll at least they'll have a reference. And
Absolutely.
unfortunately, we don't, and it's taken a few individuals to be lost to ignite this, but we feel at least at this point, we can establish a policy and future boards will be able to follow that policy.
Yeah, and I recognize the importance of that.
Yeah.
And the process, and I understand that it takes time. And, again, since there isn't one yet, can we move forward? I think we've heard from many obviously in the community and from board members privately and publicly that they do feel that this is a situation that merits naming this, the auditorium after Mr. Martin. I feel like most people on the board have expressed that in some way or another. Is there any way that, you guys would consider, moving this forward while still working on the policy for the community, for future reference? Question.
All I can say is that a board member would have to make a motion in order to do that, and then it would have to be voted on.
I'm one of the people that I've said, in public and privately that I do support. I think Mr. Martin ticks every single box. I only got to know him by attending school board meetings, and he was the big jolly guy in the red shirt for most of my
Purple.
or purple. And my students didn't have the benefit. I think Laura was at band camp one year when he came and helped out with that. But based on everything I know about him and from the community standpoint, I think he ticks every single box. But at the same time, I recognize the need for a little bit of a slowing down and to make sure that those boxes stay ticked. We've heard of, other facilities and other school districts that have been named for someone without the waiting period, or they're still on the staff. And then later on, allegations come out against that individual. And then they have this facility name. Not that that would ever happen with Mr. Martin, God forbid. But I feel like in order to have it be a lasting honor, I feel like a little bit more time is warranted in this case too. So I don't know what the right amount of time is, but I don't know that I'm ready tonight to say, yes, we're going to do it right now. I think I need a little bit, I think we need to go through the process.
Just adding to it, I mean, obviously, the young men and women that are here right now in the audience, and yourself and a few others that have come, feel very passionate about Mr. Martin. And I think that will continue through the rest of their school years in high school, that he's not going to be forgotten. And I don't think right now, by rushing a process to name a portion of the building after him is going to diminish anything later on down the road. And I think he'll still be remembered the same way. And I understand those individuals won't be in the school possibly when it ends up getting named for him, if it does. But it's no different than the 4 classes coming up after that will not have known him, but it'll still be named if it gets named after him.
I think the frustration comes from the fact that this isn't the first in a recent history, and that now that this one has come forward, we've decided to write the policy and hold off on making a decision on this one until the policy is written. Policy still needs to be written. And, I understand that and understand why it's important to have it in the books. But at the same time, very recently, decisions were made quite quickly about the others that were brought forward. And I think, many have agreed that this specific request is quite valid and warranted. And it's just frustrating to see it stalled.
Yeah. I don't think we're stalling. I don't think the other one was rushed to as far as making a decision. Actually, the decision was made not to name the library after Dr. Ange because we never named anything after anyone. And so we were just going to hold that way. We did a memorial for her outside. And then now with Mr. Martin's passing, it's brought to light that we need a policy because now here's a second individual that a group wants to name a portion of the building afterwards. So it's obviously a need. This is like the second one in the course of like 9 months.
And I think too that, I think we recognize the validity in the honor and bestowing that honor in Mr. Martin's name. And so we, as a board, don't want to say no, just to keep up with precedent. So that's kind of why, I pushed for a procedure to be laid out more than just, we don't name anything after anybody ever, where that's always been the kind of the precedent that we've held. I feel like this is necessary.
I do like the fact that it says a minimum of 3 years must have, or death of the individual. So does that mean, when did Bill stop? A year ago?
3 years from postmortem.
Yeah.
3
2
years
years?
from
When did he retire?
2017.
2 years ago. So does that mean that we can skip ahead to 1 year if we pass this policy? Instead of waiting the full 3 years because
Well, and I think-
completion of service was 2 years ago.
Right. So, and I think that, I forget now who said it, whether it was you or Travis, start the process now, instead of waiting until we pass the policy and then beginning the 3-year waiting period. I think we've started this process already and
It started
imagining.
from his retirement date.
Right.
And I would like it to be done during a Christmas break when all the kids are home from Do you know what I mean? Like the basketball game the other night, there was so many alumni kids there. Hopefully you'll all be away doing whatever you're doing at college, but you'll all be back in December so we could have a big ceremony then. So it's not like some random Wednesday in September when you're all up at UNH.
Or wherever you
Or
choose to
BC or
go.
Harvard.
Right.
But I would think that anytime if we were to name a portion of the building, that it would be a celebration.
That alumni could attend if they're in college.
Mhm.
You could even get into a routine that's like a homecoming weekend
That'd be
event, you know,
Right.
so it can actually help attract people if you just sort of get into a
Mhm.
schedule.
Thank you for your input. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Are we allowed to make like a second comment?
You can.
Just for you, Travis.
Thank you. I would just like to add that I think I agree with a lot of the comments here, and that I think it's important to separate the emotional aspects. And I think it's definitely important to have a waiting period, because I have heard the cases of people being dedicated in like hallways and spaces, and then allegations come out. And I think it's definitely important. I don't think that would ever happen with Mr. Martin, but definitely in a policy, I think a waiting period from the time of proposal is important. However, I also think there is a little bit of hesitation with us, because it says that you have to wait under proposals, a minimum of 3 years must have elapsed. So I think the way we've been interpreting it is that you have to wait 3 years after that person has retired to propose something.
Mm.
And I think, are we interpreting that correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
So it'll be one more year
Yeah.
after this. That's what I was asking too.
Almost 2 years.
Okay. Year and a half,
I think
my time, not Brian's time.
Then it has to go to the voters.
We'll see who's still on the board.
we're here as a student council because we wanted to speak on behalf of the students, and many students have come to us asking how things are going and if they should attend. And I think one suggestion is that perhaps a waiting period for proposal is not as important as a waiting period for like naming it and for reviewing the actual proposal. Because I think, 3 years from now, the proposal will still come back. I don't think there will be any different story. I don't think the story is going to change from Mr. Martin's legacy. I think the performing arts department is still going to be coming. I think I'll still be here, and we'll still be pushing this. I think it's more important to place the waiting period on reviewing it, actually looking into this person's contributions. And we all know Mr. Martin has had lasting contributions on the high school. So I think my main point is that 3 years to wait for a proposal is extensive in my opinion, because I think what I think we need as a school is to, at least have it heard now, because it's important to hear his stories from the students that are here today. And then, if it takes a couple years to actually happen, then those students can come back. But I think it's important more so to place a time on reviewing the actual proposal than waiting for it to happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you done now?
Yes.
Is there anyone else? Well, again, thank you very much for your input.
Sorry.
Let's bring us to our annual meeting calendar. This is for reference.
I'm sorry?
The meeting calendar.
Yes,
This is for reference.
just put down on the agenda that you were going to announce the dates for budget
Yep.
hearing and deliberative.
Yep, the 2019 Town School District Budget Hearing is scheduled for January 10th, 2019 at 7 PM in the CHS Auditorium. And the 2019 deliberative session date is February 9th, 2019, which is Saturday at 10 AM in the CHS Auditorium. We have minutes from December 5th, 2018 for approval.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from December 5th.
A second.
Any conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained, 500. That'll bring us to the business report.
So I provided a written report this week as well. I'll just go through some of the highlights of that. The 2020 budget update. The budget committee on November 29th took action on the budget and did $240,000 worth of reductions to the recommended budget. So that's now what it goes forward as the budget committee's budget. So now I provided in here a summary of activities showing where the budget started initially in September through where we are currently. Then we went through in the past couple weeks to go through the default budget to make sure that we had that calculation pretty well squared away. Some background on how that was performed. We took the salaries and benefits for the staffing level as it is today, with the assumption that as of July 1st, that's a contractual obligation we'll have with their current benefits elections. So we brought that forward into the default budget. So that does represent an increase, even though there is not a CBA in place. What we are contractually obligated to pay currently is what we would expect to pay going into next year. Operationally, we went through the rest of the budget line by line, made reductions that we possibly could. Certain areas such as transportation with no contract is a level funded budget. So though we are anticipating a 3 to 5% increase in transportation costs, in the default, we have to carry it forward at the same amount. Other than that, we did go through a majority of the lines and level funded what was approved in the March vote, line by line. So we level funded the majority of those lines. Based on that information, the default is now only $24,000 away from recommended budget. So the tax rate impact default versus recommended is only about a 3 cent difference. So the recommended budget would be, if I have it down as 46 cents per thousand, and the default would be 43 cents per thousand. I thought also that we have mentioned in certain meetings, the impact of the state revenue and those shortfalls. And even if we were to level fund our budget dollar for dollar, what the tax impact would be. So we did go through and calculate that, doing a level funded budget from FY19 into FY20, and that estimated tax impact would be 24 cents per thousand. So there would still be an increase on the tax bill, even though we're level funding the budget dollar for dollar.
Because we're not getting as much reimbursement.
Yeah, the phase out of the stabilization grant will continue to impact as we go year to year. Other than that, I did put some detail in my written report about the warrant articles, but we'll discuss those in a few minutes. Superintendent and myself met with representatives from First Student. I think, was it last week or the week before? And I have started working on a draft of that contract. We're still looking at that. We have not provided that to First Student yet. We were reviewing some language that they were wanted to see in the contract. As soon as we've hammered that out, I'll send that over to First Student for their review, so we can see if we can get something going. There are security projects. We put in 2 applications for the state infrastructure grant for an LMS entry vestibule and a CHS entry vestibule. Those have gotten recommended for funding through the commission. The CHS will be funded at 80% if that goes through. I think their next meeting is in January. The one for LMS was recommended for funding at a far lower rate, only giving us $100,000 towards that project. That's not going to cover the whole project. So we may have to find other ways to fund that if that gets approved to go forward as well. I did run out of time to put together my monthly financials, so I will have those in January. So I apologize for that. Other than that, unless anyone has any questions.
No, I have a question on the default. Don't you need a motion for us to accept the default budget?
I don't think we're quite at that point yet.
And did they?
Well, you have the dollar amount that's going into the warrant article, so that's what I'm asking.
It could change.
The default can be subject to change up
Right.
until.
The 9th, whatever.
Yep.
Or was there a reason they didn't recommend the LMS? Was it just too high, or?
They had a set pool of money that I think they were allocated. They had a lot of applications go in, so they, the schools that hadn't received any money. Now, if
I remember, it was like 240?
Was more than that.
It was up around 300
Yeah.
to do the entire project. But if there is unclaimed funds after April 1st, you have to claim the funds by April 1st. If there's anything left, they will reallocate. So there's an opportunity to get additional funds from this.
Anybody have any questions for Corey? That'll bring us to warrant articles. Sorry. So let's go through them. Article A is just for 2 school board positions that are open, 2 3-year terms. Then we go to Article 1. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately? The amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote at the first session of the annual school district for the purpose of the fourth herein totaling $22,865,429. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $22,824,871, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by provisions, action of the Litchfield School District or by law, or the school board may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13X and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. So is there a motion?
I thought, can we vote on it if we don't have a default budget number?
We do have the default budget number.
How do you just?
No, we're not voting on the
Yes.
default,
Yeah.
but it can
Oh,
You
change.
can still recommend or not recommend, whatever.
Correct.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 1
I'll second.
or recommend.
Recommend.
I'll second.
Any discussion? There are none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain. Article 2, shall the Litchfield School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Litchfield School District and Litchfield Education Association, which calls for the following increase in salaries and benefits of the current staffing level. There's your sheet. Year 1, I'm going to be very clear on this, so the people at home are listening. Year 1 cost $394,429. That's for the 2019-2020 school year. Year 2, 2020-21, cost is $374,294. 2012-2022,
No, I'm
Cost.
sorry, that should be 2021, 2022.
what did I say?
It says 12.
It says
I said
12.
Did I say 12?
It's okay.
All right. That's a long year. That year impact is $346,391 for a total of $1,115,114.
Can you repeat that?
Yep. So at the staffing level and further to raise and appropriate the sum of 1 million,
Just year
Year
3.
Just year one.
year 1. 394,429.
What was the year 3 number?
Year 3 was 346.
Yep.
391.
Okay, thank you.
So to raise, again, I just gave it the 394. For fiscal year 2020, such sum representing the additional costs attributed to the increase in salaries, benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid in current staffing levels.
Make a motion to approve warrant article number 2.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain. 500.
What's the tax impact on that?
43 cents.
43.
43 cents?
Yep. Article 3 is still a placeholder at this time. It's the Litchfield Support Staff Association. At this time, we're at impasse.
Can I just ask a question about the tax impact? So the 40, is it 46 cents?
43.
43. So all of that is not realized from the beginning. Is that based on, that's the total impact over 3 years? Is that,
No,
No,
that
no.
1 year.
Figure.
That's 1 year.
that's the first year? Okay.
But however, you have to take into account too, we don't know clearly we estimate that we're going to return $200,000 in fund balance.
Yeah.
Do tend to return more. That does adjust those numbers
Right.
some of it. So
Okay. So I just want to make sure that was year one. Right. Okay. Thank you. So.
Article 4, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise the sum of $28,490 to be added to the operating budget for the purpose of funding salary and benefits for a part-time enrichment tutor position at Litchfield Middle School to support high-achieving learners. Tax impact is 3 cents.
I'll make a motion to, what are we saying, recommend?
Yep.
To recommend Article 4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Also I.
It's like slow motion.
Sorry.
500. Article 5, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise the appropriate sum of $28,490 to be added to the operating budget for the purpose of funding salary and benefits for a part-time math tutor position at the Litchfield Middle School to support struggling and resistant learners.
Make a motion to approve Article 5.
I second it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain.
Brian, can I bring something up now
Can you bring something up?
about Article 6?
Sure.
Just so you guys, that was like a lead balloon at the Budget Committee. Article 6.
Not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, I don't.
Everything's lead balloon that costs money to the budget.
Well, this one was,
They don't like us
yeah, the
having
balloon wasn't even there. on this.
reserve funds.
Well, Article 6 is shall the Litchfield School District vote to establish a teacher hiring expendable trust fund under the provisions of RSA 198:20-C for the purpose of hiring additional teachers for unexpected increases in enrollment and to raise the sum of $75,000 to be placed in the fund. The sum to come from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1 with no amount to be raised from taxation. Further, to name the school board as agents to expend from the fund.
So if I could just speak to it, I mean, the concept here is that what we ended up doing this year is voting the day before school opened to add this first grade, right?
Yeah.
The board should know that we now, I think, are at 85 or 86 kindergartners. So they are continuing to enroll. We have families moving in from out of town, and we need to educate the kindergartners. So Scott not only has added a hook to every classroom, he's going back to add a second hook into classrooms because we need to make sure we have somewhere for every child who's there. So here's an example where, we might look at that and say, this is just too many students and we would need to do something. And then you have you have money that's set aside in reserve for that purpose.
And it comes from real life experience of this year that we had to add a first grade
We have to
teacher.
absorb, we had to absorb it. It's a huge amount of money.
It is a lot of money. But, thankfully we found the monies to be used for that, but we're looking for a fund right now that we don't have to scramble and redo our entire budget because we just have to expend another $110,000 for a teacher that we need. So I'll make a motion to recommend Article 6.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Article 7, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise the appropriate up to $50,000 to be added to the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund established in 2004 with a sum to come from the June 30th unreserved fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year.
I'll make a motion to recommend that just for discussion.
Recommend what?
What's the current balance in the maintenance fund?
Well, is there a second?
I'll second it
There you go.
for discussion.
Now what is the balance?
Give me a second.
Is that 50,000?
No, there was,
Did the money from the washout have to come from this? It did not.
It
Okay.
may.
It
It
may.
may.
It may.
Right now, it's not.
right now it did not,
Okay.
but we did withdraw for the 20% matching that
Oh,
went to
right.
the GMS vestibule. So part of that is actually going to be returned because that came in below budget. I honestly, on the top of my head, I can't remember. I don't have the documentation with me.
Okay.
I want to say it's between 150 and 2 currently.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things for capital improvements, and if that's a drop in the
nothing.
bucket, it's something
Sinkholes.
catastrophic.
Yeah.
Sinkholes, roof repairs,
How much
just
did that
aging
sinkhole cost?
buildings. 31.5. I believe that was.
Bill.
It's an expensive hole.
I'd like to recommend that we have a goal for these capital reserve funds and just kind of put it out there that, you know, our goal is to have $250,000. Once we hit that goal, we'll stop asking for more money and then, or however much it is. And then, you know, as we deplete it, if we need to deplete it, we will ask the following year to get back up to that target number. Just because if we ask for another 50, another 50, another 50 year after year, I don't
He wants just to ask for the million up front.
well, whatever that number is, maybe 250 million was a little high, but I mean 1,000.
Yes, it is.
I know 250 million is too high. I just feel like if people know that this is kind of
Insight.
how, yeah, exactly. It's not going to keep hitting them year after year, and I know it comes out of the fund balance at the end of the year, but it's still.
I
I'm
think,
not sure what the right number is though.
I think it's a question for the capital committee to consider. So
Yeah.
the committee will be getting together, and when we get to that point, I think that's a great topic. What do we have in all these accounts?
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I'd love to know if we had to replace a complete boiler.
That's my
What a bill would
question.
be.
Yeah.
That would
But
be.
you want to make sure you've got
Mhm.
something big like that set
Yeah.
aside,
Yeah.
or a double boiler. Imagine
Mhm.
that scenario. So there's some work to be done. I think that committee will
Okay.
help us.
Opposed, abstained. So there's one here not numbered as a article, but we had discussion on Shell Litchfield School District if article, is it 3?
Article 2, the teacher contract.
So the Litchfield School District, if Article 2 is defeated, authorize the Litchfield School Board to call one special meeting at its option to address the article. Cost items only.
What
Have
were
you
the
been
pros
just-
and cons of that?
So it's just discussion right now because we're not voting on the article. So it's like, what's the pros and?
How you explain? Can you just?
Yeah, so we've ratified the agreement. It's going to go forward to voters. If voters support it, we're good to go. If voters say no to that, at that point, we don't have a collective bargaining agreement. Our salaries are frozen, and we would go into next year in an environment that is not really conducive to us attracting and retaining high-quality teachers. So it would be problematic for us. This would allow us to have one additional meeting to attempt to either come back with a modified agreement, we could renegotiate at that point, or come back with a different message relative to it. Most likely, it would be a different agreement, but it does give us the opportunity to have something in place before the start of the year if the voters said no. Pros and cons. So I think the pro is that you have an ability to do something. You're not set by one vote. A con can be that, if the public sees that, they may be more inclined to vote no to force a renegotiation or a second piece. And so that's just something that we have to weigh. I'm not sure one way or the other.
Now, if we vote to include that, do we have to include 2, one for Article 3 and 4? Or?
So currently, we don't have 3 because we're at impasse. But I would take it that if the board sends a signal they want to do this, that we would then, if we reach an agreement with LSS, we would then add this, the same language in, just in case. But we have a very short window to even make that happen, so.
And historically, we
We haven't
Have
done
not.
it before.
But
done
didn't,
this.
Michelle, didn't you say once we did
We
it?
did the first few years I was here, we did, and then I think it was 2009 or 10 that the previous board decided they didn't want to include the question anymore.
What would the timeline look like? We would have to vote, the town would have to vote again?
So the voters, we would have the count at mid-March. And
We'd
again,
have a town meeting with the
assume
little
it's-
paper things?
it's negative, then we would have to
Those.
renegotiate, have something that would come forward and have a date that the board would set later. Another con to this is that if the public votes no on 3 and no on this, you're done at that point. Your other remedy is to go to Superior Court, and to petition to have a special meeting. But a judge would look at that as no means no. So if you put it on there and the public says no, you can't convince a judge to override a public vote. So that is another reason to consider not having it there, because if the voters say no, your remedy is to renegotiate. If you can reach an agreement, you can then go to court and petition a judge that, hey, the parties have reached something in good faith. We'd like the opportunity to bring it forward. And then the judge would have to decide if the merits.
So I guess you have to make a motion, right? So I make a motion to include this as Article 8. Is that what it would say?
It would
Be Article 3.
it would actually be Article 3, and we would just renumber if we end up with a,
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So it'd be Article.
it'll be right after
but
that.
it would come right after.
So I'd make a
it's clear.
motion to add this as Article 3 and renumber the other 4 articles. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine.
Add this in as one of the
Okay.
articles.
Right.
Yeah, I got
We'll
it.
get it in the right spot.
I got it.
I'll second the discussion. I'm totally against it.
I am too. Are we okay to say that?
Well, I'm gonna say it because we've already negotiated in good faith.
Okay.
We've done our due diligence as far as going through the process of negotiations, and we've come together for a contract. That's a contract, and it's a contract we'll try to sell. It's almost like, to me, it's like, well, I'm gonna ask for the world, and if I don't get it, then we'll go back and ask for a little less.
That's exactly how I thought we had to vote on it. That's why I made the motion. So we don't have to vote on it. We can table it.
No, you made a motion to put this in the warrant article, so now we're.
Discussing it?
Okay. I apologize. I might have made a bad motion, and I thought we had to vote.
No.
So, okay.
But the motion's made and the second for conversation. We can always, take your vote.
Okay.
Can you withdraw your motion?
That's what I was wondering. Or should we just vote?
Anybody else have anything?
I see both sides.
Me too.
Can I ask you guys
I
to do
know,
it?
it's
Can I ask you?
challenging.
Go ahead.
Would you guys rather me withdraw the motion or vote?
I'm
I thought we had
I'm
to vote.
torn right down the middle on this. Like I really don't know what the right answer is.
To me, if it's the first one, I think what Brian said's true.
Yeah.
We negotiate in good faith.
Mhm.
If at least we still have the option, it's not like it's out the window.
Mhm.
We could still approach a court on it, I guess.
Yeah.
But as he said, this is no means no if they're both
Right.
voting no.
And I'm full on in support of the contract regardless and selling it, and campaigning for it regardless. Yeah, I definitely see your point. But I also see the point of, well, we'll just have to make sure it passes.
You want to keep your motion? You want to retract your motion?
What's the best thing to withdraw it?
So
So I'll withdraw my
withdraw.
motion.
I'll withdraw in a second.
Sorry.
I didn't see that side of it.
What's
I
that?
didn't see your side of it till you mentioned it. I'm like, oh, if it doesn't pass, we have a second chance. That's how I looked at it, like the cheerleader side, that we have a second chance. But then people are like, oh, there's an option to not vote for it? Circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, how many people just vote no for Warren? I hate to say it, they vote no for a lot of Warren.
See, I'm like you. I would tend to say, I can't accept this, but go ahead and try again.
That's how I looked at it.
It's the double negative.
Right.
Then you are,
And it's really no. And that's a bad place to be in.
Okay.
We'll bring us on to CHS Robotics. They've updated their handbook.
I approve of those changes.
Me too. Second.
So there's a motion to accept the CHS Robotics handbook.
So made.
Is there a
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain. That'll bring us to policy FF, naming of facilities.
So we, based on the conversation last time, we took another, the substance of it is about the same. The presentation of it, I hope, is a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
That we're really looking at two levels of recognition. It's the naming and it's the dedication. And then each has a different threshold and a different process, but both processes are at the school level, with the principal kind of leading the charge. Waiting periods differ a little bit in there, 3 years versus 1 year. I think that just allows the timepiece that we've talked about to occur. And I think we shuffled a few other elements in it just in terms of where they appear in the policy. So I hope we got it to where the board is comfortable. And I forget, I think we've done, I think it's marked as first read, but are we back to first read status with this? Or-
It's up to the board. If the board would
Yes,
like
that was
to
a note I
approve it
had
as a
too.
first reading, they can. If they would like to
Okay.
wait another till the next meeting and approve it as a second reading, they can.
Just to ask the second page, that paragraph about existing policies.
Oh, yeah, we asked to strike that, didn't we?
Give me a second, let me find
It's the
it.
last paragraph on there.
On the second page. We added for the same purpose in there. After rebuild.
Existing school facility was demolished. I thought we didn't want, if we tore
It was
Griffin.
originally written,
Right, but it
it
says the
was
school.
originally written without the wording for the same purpose. So if you knock down Griffin and you built another Griffin where Griffin is, it would be for the same purpose. And it would, that's why we put those words in there.
I think the
It also
question.
says, the school board has
Okay.
the right to consider the renaming of facilities on this construction.
We've done a little bit of homework also. So in your folder of materials in the team drive, there are two documents. So the first, let me talk about, is the Campbell High School. So we found the purchase and sales agreement. It was at our lawyer's office. We couldn't find it in our office, but the lawyer had a copy of it. So, and in that purchase and sales agreement, it says there's an addendum to it. So you have the original purchase and sales, and then there's an addendum that says if the district decides to build a school on the property, it will be named the Campbell Memorial School. That's in the purchase and sales agreement. So we didn't do that, but it's there. And then it says that there will be a plaque. So we have a CMS. I was joking. They're all MSs now. But at any rate, it would be, there would be a plaque with the Percy's picture on it. And there is a plaque. It doesn't have a picture, but all of that is actually in the purchase and sales.
Somebody screwed up.
And if you go to the Griffin document is not as specific. It just indicates that with a land, I'm trying to remember, was it a sale, land sale or a land gift? Okay.
It was a gift, because I think it was like for $1.
That Griffin's name would be attached and who the Griffins were and why. So there is a memo of understanding. It's from 1971. So it was sort of like preparing for the building of an eventual middle school. The original K-8 building that was known as Litchfield School was then renamed Griffin at that point.
So it can't, with Campbell, the town or the school district tried to purchase the land prior to, and they couldn't because they couldn't afford it. Then when they sold the parcel of land at LMS, they had money, so they went back to Percy again and asked whether or not he would sell the land. So at that point, he did accept a lower amount, but again, he just wanted his name up there.
Okay.
So the Griffin doc, I pulled it up. It was a gift of land, and it was from a Mrs. Paul, and George and Clarissa Griffin were her great grandparents, and so she wanted the school to a wish that the school might be named the Griffin School in memory of them. is the way it's worded. And obviously it was not it was a wish that was granted and it is there. So then coming back to this language, a future board would have to decide exactly what, and there's a bunch of configurations of what might happen.
Right.
Again, a wish of what might happen. And then what you would do with that would be for the board to decide. So it doesn't really lock you in, I don't think.
I just had a couple things. I'm wondering if we should define what a core facility area is. Because it's not defined. Proposals shall be limited to core facility areas, defined as perhaps whatever. There's something down below that has kind of a listing of areas, but that doesn't say that they're core areas. So yeah, so there's a paragraph that says it is the policy of the Litchfield School Board to retain the names of any existing school facility, which includes but is not limited to blah blah blah. Are those the core facilities? Do you know what I mean?
So originally they were up with the other sentence, and then in reshuffling this,
Okay.
you're right, they're separated off. It was more obvious that's what it referred to.
Okay, got
But I think if you look at that too, I mean, it's buildings, portions of buildings, athletic fields, stadiums, gymnasiums, libraries, auditoriums, field track, multipurpose rooms. I think it just about covers everything
Yeah.
except the bathrooms.
So if it covers everything, are those really core facilities?
I think it's core parts of the facility. Yeah.
Okay. Just as
Well, I
long as
think
that's
that we
clear.
all that.
Yeah, those are the core, those are the core areas.
Retain the names.
It's typically not classrooms. So if you look at that list, it's core more areas that all students would access at some point, whereas classrooms would be more.
Like public area. Well, I guess they're all
Common
public
areas.
Common areas. Okay. So for me, I thought it would be helpful to define those. And then what does approved at the building level mean? That they simply meet the eligibility requirements? So once the proposal comes to the principal, does the principal approve it? Or is it basically the principal just brings it to the school board,
Well, the principal makes a decision as to whether or not it wants to bring it
moves
forward to the superintendent.
So is it his sole decision to move it forward, or do you know what I'm just trying to going through the process in my head? So
I-
here's this proposal.
I would think, like with any decisions made by a principal, that he's going to, take his group together, his admin team together, and say, listen, here's something that's come up.
Right.
I mean, again, it's his building or her building.
So I didn't know if we would want to spell that out or leave it up to them. I mean, I just was confused about what does that mean? Approved at the building level.
If approved at the building level?
It says, yeah, approved at the building level. That's the wording that
To me, that means the principal.
What's that?
right.
To me, that means the
Yeah.
principal.
Right.
And it's just the first step and.
Right.
It's just the first step.
Right.
It's gonna go 2 steps.
Okay. And then
Like the guy-
perhaps add volunteers and other community leaders to the definition of dedication at the beginning, because when I first read it, it just says staff at the top.
What are you looking at?
Where is it? I gotta find it. I know, I made notes to myself. Okay.
Lasting contributions to the student, staff, and community at the end of dedication, the first paragraph.
I know, I typed it out into the first paragraph. Different ways, naming. These two what?
No, vibrate.
Yes. Okay, hold on.
So in order to get this,
Where is it? Hold on a second.
Yeah, that does work.
Definition of dedication. At the beginning.
It's all in one place on Google.
Yeah. and you'll have the enrollments.
Well, I just thought when I was first reading this that it wasn't open to community
What was
members.
I think she's talking about dedication. Dedication and naming are two different things. We
Right.
tried to separate them.
Oh, thank you.
Dedication.
Yes, it's the second page. So it says may be dedicated to recognize the outstanding service of a school district employee or school district official. But it's more than that for the dedication, right?
Mm.
And lasting contract.
No, that's dedication.
Right. So I'm talking about the definition
Oh,
of
I
the
see.
definition
Oh.
of
Yeah,
the
yeah, I see what she's
dedication that
talking
should also include, it has, the definition includes school district employee and school district official.
Mhm.
But I think it should also
doesn't have
include volunteers and
volunteers.
community
Yeah.
leaders.
Because we listed it.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
right. That's a good catch.
Okay, and then just something else kind of maybe out of the box. Part of the wording says maybe we want to add some plaques can get old. There may be more people who have more creative ideas than us about how to properly recognize somebody. It's like, in marketing, everybody presents checks and they take pictures of the checks, and it's so boring. Like over time it gets so boring. But maybe something like the board reserves the right, to determine the method of recognition, but also the manner of recognition. It doesn't always have to be a plaque. There are other really thoughtful and beautiful ways to recognize
Yeah, I
people.
think we do that now. I mean, Mr. Martin's got one of his wands that's going to be. That's the case. It's gonna be going
Wand,
into
did
his
you just say
room.
wand?
Wand? Is there no
Baton.
wand?
Oh, it's a
Um,
I just don't want.
We aren't Hogwarts, Brian.
Yeah.
But-
No,
but-
that's great.
I think
So
a plaque
plaque or
I think a plaque is-
other-
I think a plaque is uniform. I mean, that's what you're going to find.
I want it to be a-
Dedications are always on a plaque.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know, just throwing it out there, because I would prefer to see something that's more thoughtful and,
Dried flower
Interesting.
arrangement.
but yeah, not huge. Those are my thoughts.
Does anyone have anything else?
Excuse me. Sorry. I'm in my PJs, so.
I'm wearing pajama material here.
So The only thing you're adding then is
They're not doing like a March.
that someone
showcase.
outside of
I said that.
It's the Millennium Club now.
Oh, isn't it?
the school.
They need to change their-
community-
Volunteers and community. It's in there later on,
It's
but
in
not
the-
in the
it's in
definition up
there.
at
Yeah.
the top.
But we just kind of missed it in the first.
Yeah, this
It's not at the top.
dedication, we just have to expand it to include.
And then I do feel like core facility needs to be defined too. And maybe just it's adding like, down the core facilities include.
We had that in the original, just.
Yeah.
So we'll list it right in there where it says proposals for facilities. Is it in?
It's at the end of the policy, basically.
Right.
Right down here
These are all the core facilities.
on page 2. Yeah. Right. I'm going to make, just so we can get this
Yep.
policy moving along here, I'm going to make a motion to accept policy FF as a first read with the 2 corrections that
Mhm.
Tara just brought up.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
Hey, Brian,
Yes.
if we do adopt this policy.
Yep.
The naming for Mr. Martin, because it has already been proposed and I'm assuming through the process, the vetting process has already come to the board. Can we expedite that instead of waiting to approve this and then start the process of the 3 months of public input and
But I think it still needs to go through the process. I think that when it comes to the anniversary, when you hit the 3 years, or a little bit prior to that, they'll still need to go to the administration. Then it would still have to come to the superintendent. I think just go through the process. I don't necessarily know if it has to be, was it like 3 months? It said whatever.
Well, I kind of feel like they already have.
Right, I don't see the need for the 3 month part, but I think it still needs to go presented to Bill Arnigan.
Yep.
And then I think it still has to go to the superintendent, whether it be Bill Arnigan still there or whether it be Mike Jetty still there, and then come to the board.
Haven't they done that?
No.
So
I'm
are
not-
you asking for like a one-time exception to skip
Right.
over the 3-year rule because they came to us prior to the?
Well, no, not to skip over the 3 years.
Okay.
Just
Just to go through the process.
just to say that they've already started this process and,
Yeah, but I
and
think
not
that-
It
having to
won't be
start
3
over at
years because
square.
he's retired a year and a half ago.
I think
Right.
I think there's still gonna be needed as far as to have a paper trail and the procedural process take place, that someone will still need to meet with the principal and suggest, listen, we want to for this reason, and have some type of documentation that will then go to the superintendent. Superintendent will then bring it to the school board. I'm certain it'll be expedited. I don't think it'll come to the school board if it's the existing school board and say, well, let's take it under,
Mhm.
we'll give some time kind of thing.
So it'll be a year and a half, so it'll be the end of the school year in a year and a
Next year.
half
And it'll
next.
still have to go, if it's approved by the.
Then it would have to go to the
principal,
voters
it'd have to
the
go
following
to the
March.
voters.
Right.
So that would be March of 2020, I believe.
That's if they're going for the naming, right? So that's the other
Right.
piece is that
Right.
they may, so
may
by
end up
sending it
with
back to the
dedication.
school, they may say, you know what? Dedication is what we want to do
Right.
at this point.
Okay.
Because that has a 1-year limit, right? So
Right.
that's eligible right away.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but it goes back to the school. And then I think Bill would say, we don't have to spend 3 more months. We've already spent 3 months. It's been out there. It's been public. It's been on TV. We've had
Mhm.
groups in. We'll plug
Right.
ahead.
But I'm just saying, instead of putting it on the ballot in 2020, can we start the process so that it can be on the ballot for 2019? Oh, wait, no,
No.
never mind. It's
No,
already
still have to wait,
2019. I'm tired. It's late. The 2019 ballot is, yeah, what we just voted on. Okay.
And the recognition part, I mean, like when we're walking the halls today, I mean, you get something for Coach K. That's outside the gym and it's for
Sportsmanship award.
sportsmanship award. And Coach K was the founding AD that developed the programs at the school. And that's what they have there for,
Yeah.
is that plaque.
Yeah.
And we found another one, Liz, maybe you know, that's at the front office for a scholarship. That stopped though in 2009 for some reason.
Is it for a girl?
Now, do you remember his name?
No, the last name was Graf, Graf, and it was it's like a math science for a student that's interested in math science.
It's right on the
And-
wall at the office. And they give out
We
scholarships
lived
from
in town 8 years.
2003 to 2009.
But it stopped, or it hasn't been updated
Right.
since 2009. So,
Bill's really good at that, keeping all that stuff updated.
Records, yeah.
so we'll dig into that one to figure out what happened. And, I think there were 4 kind of blank plaques that were on it, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And I said to Brian, if, let's say the family decided to stop giving the funding for it. So that's why I stopped. We'll just mark it on the last plaque. So that there's a
Right.
story. It ties it up.
Absolutely.
Anything else? That will bring us to the manifest.
You also had, did we miss it? The public gift one?
Yeah, for reference.
Yeah,
Just a reference, because at some point the board had said, so then what about if somebody's making a donation? So you may want to just give that a read and see if this speaks to it or doesn't speak to it. And if we need to make an adjustment, this might be the right place to put it because it does speak to that gift concept.
yeah, but also within that policy, it says that they're going to come to the board and the board will decide whether or not we accept that donation. Does it fit into,
Core values.
core values there? Thank you.
So it may already say exactly what you need it to say. This may cover it, that if somebody comes forward and says, I want to donate this money for this purpose, that this would address how the board could act.
Is this a new policy or existing?
This is
Existing.
existing.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it looked familiar.
And we may want to say, we may want to link the two. So like with the naming one, you may want to say see also KCD, or KCD, you may want to say CFF, so that there's sort of that circular piece.
All right. Manifest? We all set? Public input? We have no more public. So we'll go to non-public. Section RSA 91-A:311. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee Effective, one has a right to a meeting, which two requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. The hiring of any person as a public employee, matters which if discussed publicly would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or the agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Yes.
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 Yes. Or non-public.